What if your greatest challenge became your greatest teacher? Today on Making Maverick Moves, I'm joined by Eric Goodman, CEO, philanthropist, author, and someone who turned 9 months in a body cast when he was 15 years old into a lifetime of purpose. Eric was named Orange County Philanthropist of the Year. He's here to share why giving back is his superpower, how mindset fuels maverick moves, and why if you're stuck, serve is the mantra that guides his leadership. This isn't just a conversation. It's a reminder that the way we think shapes the way we live. My name is Gina L. Osborne, and I'm an Army veteran. I spent 6 years during the end of the Cold War as a counterintelligence agent. I was appointed as an FBI agent, and during my 22-year career, worked everything from Asian organized crime to terrorism. I became the Assistant Special Agent in charge of cyber and computer forensics. And then I came out of retirement and spent 2 years as the Safety and Security Officer at LA Metro. Now I'm here to help you make your Maverick move. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Eric, thank you. I love your story. It is so inspiring. So can you take us back to that time that you were a teenager?
Yeah.
And you had a life-saving surgery where you wound up in a body cast for 9 months.
That's correct.
So how did that change your outlook on life?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I share it publicly as my Forrest Gump story. Don't know if you've ever seen the movie before, but for any of your listeners that have. So Forrest Gump, when the movie was there, Tom Hanks was, the star of the movie. And when his mom and him were in the hospital with the doctor, they said his spine was crooked. And so that's why he had to wear those leg braces. And then if you remember, the kids picked on him because he was disabled. And the super famous part of the movie is when he's running down the driveway and the leg braces are falling off, when the bullies are throwing rocks at him and picking on him because he was disabled. And then he went on to do all these incredible things in life, which, according to the movie, changed history. But as we know, it was, all for fun. My life was extremely similar because I had the exact same condition that Forrest Gump had, supposedly. I was born with a rare condition called Schumann's kyphosis, which is similar to scoliosis, but much more severe. And when I was 15 and a half years old, the curvature of my spine was putting pressure on my left lung, and so my left lung was going to collapse. So that's why I had to be rushed into emergency surgery. And then the cure for my condition is to fuse your spine. The problem is when they fuse your spine, it stunts your growth, and it's a very large bone to heal. So I was in a full body cast from the neck down for 9 months. Then I had to have physical therapy to learn how to walk again. And then just the rest of my life was kind of filled with elements of disability, mentally and physically both. So that was kind of my start, which was rocky. But then I'm happy to say that, as we'll share today, I used most of that pain and suffering from way back then to kind of lead my life going forward. And now my whole life's devoted to people with disabilities and my businesses and my personal life.
What does that teach you about resilience?
The very first thing it taught me was empathy. I learned empathy at a very young age, only just because I know what people are suffering through, so I feel what they feel. So, it's like anything in life. When you've been through it, you can understand it better than just saying, I understand how you feel, but you really don't. You're just being sympathetic to it. I'm very empathetic about it. But then also, the resilience, I think that's the whole premise of what's changed my life going forward after that. Because my mindset was I could have took what happened to me and I could have said, poor me, this is awful, look at me, look at how horrible this was. What I had to go through to get to that point, 15 and a half years of leg braces and back braces and a full body cast for 9 months and, trying to be a teenager, not going to school, being picked on by the kids, being different, and then everything that came out of that after the surgery. I could have just taken my life down a different path, but at a very young age, I decided, I can take this, make something positive out of it. My mindset was, I'm not going to let this define me. So I will often laugh and joke, or people will quote and say, I don't let my disabilities define who I am. I let them motivate me. So it motivates me to do more and to be better. And I built an entire business and career and philanthropy work out of what happened to me.
That is so inspiring, just because there's so many opportunities for people to go in a completely different direction. And yet that empathy that you talked about, that's how you went on to help other people. So tell us about your company and how you help people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I own 3 companies. One of them is Mountain View Services, MVS Inc. We've been in business for 38 years. We service about 500 homes for developmentally disabled adults and children with all of their food and medical supplies. So someone is either born physically or mentally disabled. A family member will then place them in a group home, or a lot of them are wards of the state, so they become in state care, and then they get placed in a care home. Then they contract with me for services to take care of all of their needs. So we service about 3,500 patients a month with our services, and it was a company that I didn't found and start. I started with them as an employee, minimum wage employee, just started working. Was sales, director of sales, vice president, president, and then I acquired the company in 2020. So I've been the CEO and owner of the company the last 5 years. And basically for the last 30 years, my life's work have been caring for people with disabilities, which was amazing because the way my life started and me being disabled, which you wouldn't know if I walked in here today and hadn't shared with you my Forrest Gump story, you wouldn't know I'm disabled. You can't see that. But I have the scars to prove that I am. And I have elements that I live with every day from it. But that whole entire thing, I didn't realize till I started sharing my story publicly about 3 years ago, that all of that happened to me way back then is what brought me to where I'm at today. And I think unknowingly, I did all of that work because that was my mission. Now that I share my story publicly, thanks to my mentor, Charles Antis, which I know you've had on your podcast, who's an amazing man that I hope we'll talk about more today. And his storytelling coach, Jay Golding, that became my storytelling coach, had me start sharing my story publicly. Then I connected the dots and said, wow, all of this that I went through in my life actually turned out to be where it is today. And it just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do a phenomenal job when it comes to telling your story. I watched you on a video where you were holding the leg brace.
Yes.
And you were talking about the Forrest Gump story, and it just really struck my heart watching you because it's such a beautiful thing to come out of something that's so tragic.
Yes.
And it really impacted your mindset, so much so that you wrote a book.
I did. I did.
Called What's Your Mindset?
That's correct.
So talk a little bit about your, this positivity that's come out of you through all of this trauma and tragedy that has, happened as a result of this situation in your disability. So how does mindset, or how did mindset play a part?
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched Charles's podcast with you on it this week. He cried a lot. I think I counted that he cried 3 or 4 times. And then he texted me afterwards and he said, I was super emotional. Gina got me really emotional because he cares, because his heart's so big. Mm-hmm. I told myself before I came in I wasn't going to cry, but you're probably going to make me cry if we start talking about the leg braces. So when I retold my story the first time publicly on stage at the OC Legends event, where I got up and shared my story, shared the stage with Charles, he told his story about the moldy mattress and the child, which I could repeat verbatim that because it's on. I got up and told that story, and I didn't remember wearing those leg braces. I have no recollection of wearing those leg braces. But I talked to my parents, and my mom had said, well, these are the leg braces you wore when you were a little kid, which looked just like the ones in the Forrest Gump movie. And I got my hands on the leg braces, and I held them for the first time at that OC Legends event, which they were tiny because I was 3. And I got so emotional. I just broke down and lost it on stage when I was telling the story and crying, because it all came back to me, like holding those little leg braces in my hand and thinking about how I started and what happened to me, knowing the condition I had and the disability, and knowing what was going to happen in my life. It wasn't like I just woke up one morning and I was ill. I knew what was coming. I didn't know it was going to turn out to be all this, but I knew. I had no recollection, and I think from talking to Jay and retelling my story, I think I had PTSD. I think I just completely blocked that whole time period in my life out because it was so tragic. To be honest with you, I know you've served, and thank you so much for your service. And those that have served, I know how real PTSD is, but until you've experienced or known, you can't explain it. Before that, I would have said I wouldn't have been able to. Now I'm like, thinking back on it, I can't remember anything from that time period. But then that brought back a lot of memories with those leg braces. And then telling my story publicly, connecting the dots that Jay shared, that I think all of that happened to me unselfconsciously brought me to caring for people with disabilities and building an entire business out of it. And then I started working with nonprofits for the same reason, because I wanted to give back to the community and help people in the community. And so I started writing a book, the What's Your Mindset book, and I started putting all these stories in my life together, the disability with my legs, then the disability with my back, then I had dyslexia, and then I had a heart condition. And it just seemed like my entire life had just been, all these things obstacles I had to overcome. And then becoming an entrepreneur, it's very difficult. And then buying a business, then buying a second business, and starting a third business. I started looking at all of these things and I'm like, wow, the connection, this whole thing is the mindset. That was the connection through the whole entire events of my entire life. Was every single time something happened to me or I was faced with something, well, it had a lot to do with faith too. I mean, faith is a very strong part of it, but faith is part of my mindset. To have that in the right spot was I could overcome all these things and I could do everything because I was always in the mindset that I was going to stay positive and that something good was going to come out of it. It was a learning lesson and that I had been through all these things for a reason. Where I think too many people, I think a lot of people, have anxiety and depression because they get their mindset in a place of all these bad things have happened to me or these bad things are happening in life and they're affecting me and it lets my mind go in a place that it shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Then I get stressed out and then I have anxiety and then I get depressed and then they can't get out of that hole. And then they wonder, why is it somebody like myself or you who have had tragic things in our life happen to us or have served or have been in FBI or things that I've done. Why have these things turned into what we're doing now today? Mm-hmm. Because our mindset was 100% mindset. We had the mindset that we were going to take these things and make something out of it. And I just think too many people don't. I think they just get stuck in that mindset of letting it affect them.
Mm-hmm. So that mindset, finding that positivity. So when you have been down, where do you find that? Because I think that's the first place that people need to start, right? When they are depressed, when they have the anxiety, what place would you go to lift yourself out?
For me, it's my faith. Mm-hmm. So for everyone, some sort of faith. I don't care what kind of faith it is, but faith in something, a higher power, believe in something. We all have a different religion. I don't know what yours or your listeners are, but they need to have something to go to, for them. Actually, I was at a charity event recently, and this lady pulls me aside during the charity event, like literally where everything's going on. She kind of pulls me over in the room and she says, I've got to ask you a question. I said, okay. She says, I see you on LinkedIn. I follow you. I see you speaking at events. I see you at nonprofit. I see you in the community. She says, you're always smiling. You're always happy. You're always upbeat. I've never heard anybody in the community say anything negative about you. She's like, how do you do it? What's your secret? Mm-hmm. I said, my faith, my mindset. And that was it. That's all I said. And she kind of looked at me. She stood there for what felt like a few minutes. It was probably seconds. She said, that's it? I said, that's it. And she walked away. I think she was waiting for me to give her this, revelation. Yeah, that she was like, you figured it out. You discovered, what is it? And I said, that's all it is, because that's all it is. I go to my faith. I have faith, so that's what's able to pull me through and keep me positive, knowing that it's a learning lesson for some reason. I don't know. I know what my mission is. My mission on this earth is to help people with disabilities and seniors and kids. So I know that's what the path he has me on. I don't know always why and the answers, but I know if I just keep in a positive mindset and follow that it will be. So for me, that's what I go to. But somebody needs to have something that they lean on, because people are going to say, well, it's easy for you to say to get out of that mindset, but it's hard to actually do it.
Right.
If you have something to go to, the faith, it's not. But then it's a matter of, every day something happens to me, and it's my decision to say, okay, I'm going to let this influence my entire day, and my day's going to suck. And I let it happen. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to go home. My wife's going to say, how's your day? And I'm going to say, it was awful. And I'm going to give her all the reasons it was awful. And the whole day's ruined. That's a choice that I make, but I don't. I never do that. I let things happen. I stay super positive. I think, okay, I'm going to learn something out of this. There's a lesson. There's a reason. Why am I being tested? Why am I being pushed? What am I supposed to do with this? What's the reason? I pursue on with my day, stay positive and happy the entire day, keep my mindset in a good place. I get home, my wife says, how was your day? I said, my day was amazing. I'm going to tell her all about this. I'm going to tell her about the charity board I was at this morning. I'm going to tell her about the events I've been at today. I'm going to tell her about the great things that happened in the company. Did stuff suck today? Absolutely. Of course things suck today. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to stay positive about all the things that were good. And that's why every day for me is a great day.
So you choose not to dwell on the bad. Yeah. You choose to dwell on the good. and really just focus on there are better things coming.
Absolutely.
So that's what your faith does. I always think that with every crisis comes an opportunity because, like you're right, you could be beaten down so easily. And we do it to ourselves with the stories we tell ourselves, in our head. But you're right. It is that choice. It is that mindset to decide, am I going to go down this rabbit hole and be miserable all day long and take everybody down with me?
That's right.
Or am I just going to let it, be off a duck's back and choose to do something productive, which is what you choose to do every day.
And you and I discussed it, I know when we talked previously before a little bit, as the leader of multiple companies and as a community leader in town, that positive mindset that I stay in all the time, that affects a lot of people around me. And I know you and I discussed this at length. You get to a certain place in your career or in your life. I'm in like that third stage right now, right? And so for me, sometimes I think too many leaders don't realize that they're being watched as much as they are, and that the things that we do and say influences a lot of people that we maybe don't realize or don't know, especially my team. So I know for my companies, I'm the barometer for the entire company. So if I came into the office today and I was in a super bad mood and yelling and screaming and mad, the entire team would react to that. If I come in a super happy, positive mood and I keep them uplifted all day, the entire team's going to react to that. Mm-hmm. The performance is going to be better. The company culture is going to be better. The morale, everything is going to improve because of one person at the entire company, which is me. And I have to lead by example like that. So many days and times do I want to let it affect me? I do, but I never do let it affect me because somebody's watching me. Somebody's watching what I'm doing, and I don't want to let that happen. I want them to see that if they stay positive. And my favorite slogan at the office, I'd mentioned to you, my daughter had put it on a poster board and had it over my office door for a long time. And with all the managers of the company, I always say, I don't want excuses. I want solutions. Mm-hmm. Don't come into me with, this is the problem, and this is what happened, and this is how awful it is, and look at what we're going to do. Dwelling on what happened is not going to help any of us. I just want you to come into me with a solution and say, this is what happened, this is the way we're going to fix it, and this is how we're going to move forward. That to me is a win, and that's what I tell my team every single day to do. If we dwelled on, well, why did that happen with the customer? Why did that happen with the vendor? Why did that happen with a staff member? And we go down that rabbit hole, everybody's just going to be depressed and upset, and we're not going to win. Mm-hmm. I want to just find a solution and win and move forward. And so that's kind of my mantra.
and that's what leadership is?
Yes, which takes a long time to learn.
It does.
It took me many years to learn. Yeah, it's not something it comes to you naturally overnight.
Yes, because if you look at businesses or organizations that have a toxic work environment, where does that come from? It comes from the top. And if you have a boss that leads from fear or uncertainty or dread, the entire organization is going to be ducking for cover all day long and trying to figure out how are we going to survive this day versus how are we going to be the most innovative that we could possibly be to be productive.
Yes, and you don't think about it, but the one person's life can affect another person's life. The things you do and say, you have no idea what effect that has on somebody unless they tell you. But I had a cousin this last year who actually committed suicide. And the suicide note that was left in his car was that his boss at his office was so bad to him that he couldn't live anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
And when my cousin's wife called and told me what happened, I thought to myself, I just can't believe one person could be that awful that they could do that to another person's life. Mm-hmm. And his way out was to commit suicide. And to me, that's unthinkable. Mm-hmm. But the thing is now you're going to make me cry. And I said, I wasn't going to do this to get to the point of the but the thing was that owner of that business took a person's life, whether he unknowingly know he did or didn't. Mm-hmm. But that entire work culture knew that it was an unsafe work culture.
Yeah.
And that's how that owner was. And I think too many leaders don't realize the power that they have over other people until something like that happens. And then when it does, it's obviously a reality check to say, I've been put in this leadership position and this is really important and I need to do with it, what's my responsibility. My responsibility is to lead by example.
Right. And I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
But the biggest example going on right now of this is the CEO of Astronomer at the Coldplay concert, and how that one simple act created such an avalanche, not only for him and his family and the
all their
HR
employees
persons,
and their investors,
everybody,
and their sponsors, and
exactly.
it was a domino effect.
Right,
yes.
right. But that just goes to show that, when you're the CEO, when you're in a leadership position, that's the type of impact that you have to change lives.
Right. Yep, that's right. I actually said to my wife after that happened, I leaned over and said, I wish I knew him, because I would have explained to him ahead of time that wasn't worth, that little action wasn't worth what's coming out of it now, because I would have thought, if threw ahead farther, to think, okay, how's this going to affect everyone else around me?
Exactly. So with your book, what would you say is your favorite message? Did we already touch on that? Or, what would be your favorite thing coming out of your book that people can look at?
The book is a memoir, basically. So it's all just stories from my life, from birth to now. I was 50 this year. So, like I said, I feel like I'm in that third stage of my life, had grandkids, and kids are grown and out of the house, and my wife and I and the businesses, we're just in that stage in life. So I had been wanting to write a book for a long time. I had a lot of people say to me, you're not only your Forrest Gump story, but other things that have happened to your life that are equally as bad. I just don't share maybe that story, because the Forrest Gump is my main story. So when I wrote the memoir, I didn't realize till the entire book was finished. The book was done, and I didn't have a title. So I wrote the entire book in all these various different chapters, and they're basically just short stories from my life. And then when the book was done, I went back and read through it multiple times. I didn't know what went into being an author, but you read your manuscript, like I think it was on number 11 when we finalized it, because you got to just keep going over and over again. And it was the mindset that kept coming to my mind, that was the thing that was there. And as I went to the team and family and friends and people that I'd asked to read the book or I was going to write about in the book, and I asked them to review the story I wrote, through all of it, I said, what's the main thing that you got out of it? Like, what, if you were at my eulogy, what are you going to stand up and say? Like, what did you get out of this whole thing? And every single person said, you're always positive. Mm-hmm. You're always smiling. Mm-hmm. You're always happy. Like, my team is never once in the 29 years I've been with the company, I've never lost my temper, yelled, screamed, got mad, talked about it another. I just don't. My family at home, my wife, you and I talked about that. We talked about my wife and kids, like, I never lose my temper. I never get mad. I never yell. All three of them can tell you one time in 31 years that they've seen me get upset or lose my temper or get mad. It just doesn't happen. But that's a choice that I make, and as we've already discussed. And that's the way I live my life, by choice. And that people see that in me, and that they know that is something that I wanted to share with everyone else, which is why the mindset came so strong and why I wrote the book. So I hope people would read the book, and what they get out of the book is whatever story resonated with them in there, or whatever they took from it is that wherever they're at in their life right now, personal or business, or wherever they're planning to go, it's 100% their mindset where they're going to end up. And I know, go to any executive coach, you do coaching, do any leader, Tony Robbins, read any of the books that are the main ones. All of them are going to talk about mindset. Mm-hmm. They're all going to say, I manifested this. I knew, Steve Jobs, I knew this. Jim Carrey wrote the $1 million check. They all do it. So it's not something new. It's not there. But I don't know that everyone realizes that it's not, like, for me, the disability was my body, but my mind is what got me to where I was. The dyslexia was a mind thing, but it was how I handled it. The heart condition was my body, but my mind is what really led it. Like, the anxiety wasn't from my heart condition. The anxiety was because of my mind was anxious about my heart condition. When people stress out or get upset, it's their mind. They think it's their body. It feels like it is, but it's your mind. I don't think so many people realize how much their mind actually just controls their entire life.
Oh, for sure. And I think if people right now do a little exercise and think, okay, I'm going to go for a week or even an entire day, and everything that happens today, I'm going to view it in a positive light, and then just see how empowering that is. Because if you could, if I told you, okay, you can take away all your negative thoughts and you can just live in sunshine and unicorns, right?
Right. I wouldn't have wrote the book. Right, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast.
Exactly. But again, I think it also takes a lot of courage to do that, because I think we really, I think that we go to a place, maybe it's a safety place where, if bad things are happening to us, then I'm I feel safer,
Right.
maybe? I mean, what do you think about
Well,
that?
and Charles and I have discussed this at great length. I think he's a perfect example of it. I know you've had Wing on, myself. There's Tam. There's just a bunch of leaders in Orange County that have the same philosophy we have. But you get to a certain place in your business or your life or a leadership role where certain things are expected of you because of the title. I necessarily don't like the CEO title, to be honest with you. I hate it. I think it's demeaning just because I don't think I'm any better than anybody else that exists, but that's the title that I have. So that's what I go with and lead. But to me, when you really think about it, too many people that get in that position, I think it's ego, a lot of ego. I think it goes to their head. I think they do things. I think they have to act a certain way and do certain things, and they can't be authentic. They can't be vulnerable. If I sit here on your show and I say, I've had anxiety, I've had depression, I've had the physical disabilities, I suck at certain things, I'm not a great day-to-day CEO, I shouldn't be running my companies, I'm a visionary leader, that's why I have people in place that run the day-to-day. Like, I can give you all my faults, but I've accepted those faults and I'm willing to publicly speak about them and tell people, like, I don't have it all figured out. You may think I have it all figured out, but I don't. But then I looked at other CEOs in the community and they don't have it figured all out, but they think they have it all figured all out. And that's the way they lead. And I think that's the problem with why Charles's fearless giving model works for me, why I'm able to do so much in the community and give back because of the heart I have. Because Charles is extremely vulnerable about, as you know, you've had one. I'm extremely vulnerable. I think you have to get to that place before you can be a good leader and get your mind in the right place.
I never led authentically as a woman in a male-dominated field, a couple of male-dominated fields, until I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And in the very beginning, it was, oh no, I could never do that because the thought in my mind was, I don't want to be considered a weak sister. I don't, I have to be 10 times better than men in this job or if I'm going to survive. But it was just all stories that I said in,
it was your mindset.
It was my mindset.
Your mindset was made that you were, not
Thank
good
you,
enough.
Eric.
But once you got your mindset in the right place that you were good enough, right? Then you could lead. Yeah. And I think I saw a huge shift in my companies, the culture, the people around me when I established some core values, and the core values are my personal core values, but then now they're my company core values. And those values are what I live by. So that's kind of a few years ago when I really started to define who I am, what I wanted my brand to be, my businesses. I'm like, okay, I have these 3 core values, which are caring, dependable, and honest. And I live by those every single day. So people in my personal life have to fit those values. People in my business relationships have to fit those values. People in my charities have to fit those values, which have a lot to do with my faith, obviously, because they're values of my faith. But if they don't align with those, they don't. And what I've noticed was, especially like my team, the culture there is when I've been open and authentic and shared with them, like, hey, this doesn't make my value, and it personally bothers me, and this is why, and I'm super open and honest with them, I get much better response to that than to putting up the front of, I'm okay with it, it's good, blah, 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 and then going behind and saying, I'm upset about blah, blah, blah. And that's the way I used to lead because that's what, as we discussed, my mindset was, hey, I'm the CEO, so I have to be that way.
Yeah.
Now I'm just vulnerable with them and tell them, like, I'm upset and honest. It bothers me. I'm upset. I'm emotional. This is why. And I think they respond to that better than the way I used to lead.
Yeah, and it also gives them the opportunity to lead as well.
And sometimes they're maybe too outspoken me than they should be, but a lot of people will say to me, your leadership team really tells you what they think. I'm like, but that's the culture we have. Like, I would rather them be honest with me and tell me something they're not happy with or they don't like or something I'm doing and let me learn from that and grow than for them just to not because I'm the CEO, so they can say, well, I can't say that to Eric.
Yeah.
We say it in a respectful way, but I think my team's way more open than me than probably some other CEOs' teams are with them because that's the culture they built and that's the mindset they're in.
And it's an honest environment.
Right.
And it's got, I love that. So, of course, all of the proceeds of your book are going to be going to
charity. I still have to decide which one. Yeah, I sit on 7 nonprofit boards, so I'm sure it'll be some distribution of some of that. All of the boards I serve on are either helping kids, helping disabled adults or children, the community. So, I'm not 100% sure that all hasn't been figured out yet, but yes, for sure it will.
Yes. And you were, and this is a big deal, 2024 Orange County Philanthropist of the year.
Yeah, I was.
And when we talked about that, you said you kind of had a little bit of imposter syndrome.
I still do.
Oh my gosh.
I still do.
So why is that? After all of the things that you have done, why do you feel that way?
I don't know. I think that's just natural. We all do, obviously. You and I discussed that on the thing, but there's 3.4 million people in Orange County. In the nation, it's revered, obviously, as one of the wealthy areas. Everybody in the country looks to us here, Southern California, especially Orange County. There's people of massive means in Orange County. I mean, the wealth here is, just off the chart. So Philanthropist of the Year to me originally was thinking finances. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not cutting multi-hundreds of $1 million checks to organizations to get that title. But then I realized, since I started this giving back and started being open about what we do in the community and helping others and getting involved in all these boards, my companies are my resources that I use to give back to other places. So as you and I discussed, we use our building to house nonprofits. We use our trucks to do transportation. My employees work at nonprofits pro bono. I give my time to nonprofits, serve on their boards, help them with my connections and contacts. It's not about the money. It's not the check you write. It's about using your resources to help other people. What blew my mind about it was if you go back and look at all the other people, and then we were honored with National Philanthropy Day award last year too for the Business of the Year for National Philanthropy Day, which was nationally recognized in Orange County as the top business and small business for, giving back to the community. It wasn't about the amount of money that I've given. It was about the connections I made in the community to use my resources to help other people. And what shocked me was being Orange County, everybody outside of here thinks it's all just about money. That proved to me that me being the person that was recognized with that it isn't just about the money. If it was, I don't think I would have been recognized. It's about the impact that you make in the community using your resources to help other people. And that Orange County in its own is recognizing that and honoring somebody because of that, I think is a huge shift to 10 years ago. It would have been about who wrote the biggest check, for sure.
That says a lot. And your motto is, if you feel stuck, serve.
That's Ed Hart's model. Ed Hart is the one that said that.
I thought that was your
No,
okay.
Ed said that. Was Ed said that, and I follow that and believe that. So Ed Hart's quote was, if you're stuck, serve. So that's got me started on. I think his dad had originally told him that, and then he said it, and then he said it to Charles and I in our storytelling group and
love it.
And our pod. So yes, I've definitely stuck to that. For me, the service was, because people often ask me so many times, I probably get asked every single day, why do you serve on so many boards? Why do you give back to the community? Why do you do so much? For me, it's my downtime. It's like if I want to reset myself and I want to get my mind in the right place, I go help someone else.
Yeah.
Not everybody, that's their thing. Some people, have hobbies. Some people have addictions. They do things to make themselves feel better. For me, I feel better when I'm helping other people. So definitely that motto and that mantra that Ed had, I follow wholeheartedly.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you this. With regard to mental health, because you talked about depression and anxiety. So during the pandemic, you and your fabulous friends, we'll call them the fab friends here in Orange County, you and Charles, and you really were looking at CEOs and their mental health because it was so stressful to everyone, the pandemic.
Yes.
But you all focused on making sure that the people who were leading all of the people had a resource to go to. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So that goes back to the mindset again and some of what we talked about a little bit, but it was, I think it was in so we're in our third year, so it's 2023. I'm on the board at Cal State University Fullerton at the Business School Center for Leadership, where Charles is on, and Don Reese and a bunch of other Orange County leaders that you'd mentioned are in that group. And we were at a board meeting, and Fullerton had just hired a professor who was one of the top in the country for DEI and mental health and wellness. They'd been searching for years to bring somebody on to the team, and it's at the business school, which is odd because why would you have a professor for that at the business school? So it was kind of an interesting hire. But what they'd found is if businesses could affect the mental health and wellness and the DEI and the culture at their business, how that in turn made the business operate and run better, which Charles is a perfect example of in my business, and then how the culture is better, and then how the company succeeds more. And so they wanted to get the research to back that up. So we were at an event with the professor, and afterwards I went up to him and said, what can we do to help as a business community? Like, how do we get involved? What can we do? He said, we need to get more businesses to embrace this, study that this will actually help them. What bothered me was that the entire study was based on all the employees. Mm-hmm. If all of us took care of all of our people and we get their mental state right, then everything is good. The premise that bothered me with that and that I had was, well, what about my mental health and wellness? Mm-hmm. What about me as the CEO? What about me as the owner, the leader? So my mental health and wellness doesn't matter. I just have to take care of everybody else on my team. I didn't agree with that.
Right.
I do agree with taking care of everyone on my team, but I think my mental state has to be in the right place for me to take care of other people. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mentally in a good place, how in the world am I going to help people on my team be in a good place? So my notion to them was, I got to be good before that I can take care of them. So I said to Charles when we were at the event, I think it was that evening or afterwards, I said, what we really need to do is we need to do mental health and wellness for C-suite executives. Train all of us on where we need to be. We're at the top. It's lonely. We don't have anybody to go to. We have stress. We have anxiety. We have all these things. If we can get our minds in the right place and we can get that under control, we can help other people. Charles said, I agree with you. 100% agree with me. But he says, what would we do? I said, well, we need to equip ourselves with the right training, the right information, the right knowledge. So we went to Professor Van Wagner at Cal State University and said, will you help us do this if we want to train CEOs on mental health? Yeah. So we launched our C-suite mental health and wellness event in 2023. And Charles said, well, what if only 5 people show up? I said, well, then 5 of us could help. That'll be it. Well, we had 5 friends show up. First year, I think we had 50. Wow. Second year we did it, we had like 80. This last year we had 100. So if 100 C-suite executives are going to give up a full day in Orange County to show up to an event that's specifically designed for their mental health and wellness, that tells me it's a need.
Yeah.
That tells me they want it, and we've had good response to it. And then my premise for it, or what the explanation is, now that we all have our mental health in a better place, we can help our teams. So I think it's that trickle-down effect. I just don't think telling me to take care of everyone else and not take care of myself first is going to help the organization. So that's why we launched it, and it's been very successful. I'm hoping this next year we have over 100 nonprofit leaders, for-profit leaders, lots of predominant CEOs in Orange County have attended the event, and it seems to be helpful.
That is terrific. So how do leaders prioritize their well-being?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot too. And I suck at that. I really suck at that. I'm the wrong person to ask that for. I really suck at that.
Where's Charles?
Yeah, just because I don't have my priorities in line correctly. As most visionary leaders or CEOs or companies don't. It's like for many, 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 many years, my businesses is what led my life. Like my entire existence revolved around my businesses. I think for me, I still have struggled with that work-life balance. I still work when I probably shouldn't. But for me, it was my faith, getting my mindset in the right place, and then realizing that it's those things that I do that was causing the issue, like sending emails at 3 a.m. to the team. Well, that stresses the team out. Mm-hmm. So then the team said to me one day, one of the managers said, you ruined my whole weekend because you sent an email at 10 o'clock on Friday night, and then I stressed about it all weekend, and I worked all weekend, and then I had to come back in Monday. She was upset. I'm like, wow, did I do that? Well, I didn't feel like I did it at the time, but I did. So prioritizing that, for my team and for everybody around me, it's work is during certain hours, respect when they're not working, make sure everybody does personal things, takes care of their mental state, takes care of their body, takes care of their health. So I'm really big proponent of I walk every single day. I talk about that a lot in the book. I try to cycle every week. I try to do things in my life that just make my mental state in a good place. Volunteering is huge for me, going to places. So just getting all those things lined up in life and set up to do things a certain way, and my team's doing it, leading by example doing it. But we got to get that regiment in place, and then it's not just for me, it's for everybody that is in my organizations. Because like I said, if I'm doing the email at 3 a.m, that affects everybody. I didn't think it did, but it does.
Yeah.
So now I don't. I only email between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. If I got something to say and it's for tomorrow, I have to wait until tomorrow morning to send it because I don't want to, upset the team.
Yeah.
So just getting all of that lined up in your life to make sure you have certain protocols in place that make you operate better and then make everybody around you operate better.
Again, leadership.
Yes, right. Which is a very extremely hard lesson to learn. I've been knocked up against the head 100 times before I got it right, because there's a certain way society tells us we should be as leaders, and then there's a certain way to do it. And I think those leaders who have discovered the way to do it are the ones that are really successful because they've learned from their mistakes.
Yes. Okay, this final question comes with a story.
Okay.
When I was 5 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night screaming, and I was rushed to the doctor, and I had osteomyelitis in my hand, in my finger. and there was an opportunity that it would go all the way up my arm if they didn't get it all. So I was in the hospital. It has not even close to
I'm
what
sure at
your
the time
story
it felt
was.
like it was. I'm sure it was just the same.
Right. And I just, I was probably in the hospital, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, 4 or 5 surgeries. Finally, they got it all. But I just remember my mom, you're going to make me cry. Because every time the doctor said I had to have surgery, she would just break down and cry. And she was at the hospital with me every single solitary day.
Sounds familiar.
Brushing my hair, bananas and milk with sugar on it, that whole thing. So your parents who took care of you through all of this, I mean, what do you have to say to them?
Yeah, it was amazing. So you see, you're going to make me cry now. It's amazing looking back at it now. My mom was obviously my biggest champion because she's the one that was there for me when I needed it the most. My dad owned his own company. So for him, it was hard because he just recently started and founded his company, was trying to run a brand new company. Now I know what that was like. I mean, I have a whole new empathy for that. Owning 3 companies, being an entrepreneur myself, like I can't even imagine what he was going through with me being in the hospital, whether I was 3 weeks in ICU, whether I was going to make it or not make it, what was happening, going on, and then my mom taking care of me. Yeah, it was a really hard time in our life. I think we grew closer because of it. We have a very strong family relationship. My kids and my parents and all of us together, like we were together 24/7. We do stuff together. We all work together. We spend time together. So, I mean, it's a culture that we built doing that. Obviously, I'm very thankful for what they did. I think it did have a lot to do with the way I am today. Maybe the positive mindset and all that wasn't there. That was my own doing, but just the empathy of the caring and the situation I was in. My mom, funny story with her. I remember one time when I was in the body cast. So the body cast was like a cast you'd have on your arm or your leg, but they casted my entire body from the neck down prior to my surgery. So I had the cast pre-made. And then after the surgery, what they did is they cut the cast down the side, and then it had like these big buckles on the side of it. So when they put me in the cast, then they buckled it down, and then I was in the cast from my neck down. So when I was in bed at night, after a certain period of time, and I'd healed, my spine had healed more, I could roll in and out of the cast, and I could be in bed, but I couldn't get up out of bed because my spine was still too weak to support my body to hold me up unless I was in the cast. But I could lay in it. But I was basically stuck there. So she would come get me out of the cast at night before I go to bed. I would be in bed, and then in the morning I'd have to wait for her to come put me in the cast before I could get back up. Very type A personality myself, very controlling, obviously being a CEO and an executive entrepreneur. And so I had my a closet color coordinated by color, this short sleeve to long sleeve, all color coded. And I had all my socks, folded in a certain thing, and just everything in my room was perfect. And I remember one day she came in and I was stressed and I'm, anxious over the whole thing. And she's like, you need to relax. I'm like, that's hard to do in the situation I'm in. She went in and opened the drawer and she pulled out all the socks and she's throwing them everywhere and she messes up all the stuff in the closet and she walks out of the room. I'm like, what? Don't do that. Are you crazy? What are you doing? She's like, you're going to have to sit there for a while. I'm like, okay. And I'm stressed out because I can't get up and I don't have control over the situation. And I was like mad at her because she did it. I'm like, why would you do that knowing the condition I'm in? And the funny part of the story was after she got me up and did everything, I'm like, you did that because you were teaching me a lesson. That obviously my mindset was in the wrong place and my attitude was wrong and I was upset about something and stressing me out was this non-important thing, but that was a big deal to me and I couldn't get up and do it like I would normally do. And her attitude was, it wasn't that big a deal, it wasn't that important, and that I needed to relax, but that I was so ADHD in the way I did stuff that she knew that was going to drive me nuts. And I always stuck with me forever, and I thought about it, and I thought, she taught me a valuable lesson, even though it was something funny, tweaky the way we did it together, but it was something I remembered. And then once I got the body cast, I got a shorter version later where it was just the like back support part. You could still see it when I would wear shirts. You knew I had a body cast on. You knew I had stuff, but I was mobile then. So then I could do stuff. So then I remember going into her and telling her, I moved everything around completely different than it ever was just to get myself to be comfortable with this change is okay and that I could do what I need to do and that it doesn't have to be so, specific. Yeah.
So that's your mindset.
Yeah.
That was, she definitely shifted your mindset.
Even though that wasn't originally the premise of it, but that's what I recall from it now. Yeah.
Any suggestions to any parents out there who are going going through this type of thing?
Well, I believe, and I talk about it in my book, my premise, I think every single person on the face of the planet has a disability, whether it's a physical or mental disability. Every single person has a disability, and everyone sees it differently. Somebody may have a crooked finger, and that's a big deal to them. And they're like, this drives me nuts. It's something that I stress out all over the time. It bothers me. I'm self-conscious, and they let their mind go down like you, male-dominated industry. They didn't think you were good enough. That was obviously disability where you're like, got your mind in a place that I can't do this. So I think there isn't a single person on this planet that doesn't have some sort of disability. Maybe you weren't born with it. Maybe it's not physical. Maybe it's mental, but we all have something. So the dyslexia, the heart condition, the back thing, all the things I overcome, always tell parents or kids when I'm mentoring them or talking to them is like, I know that's a big deal to you, and I know you think it's a big deal, and I know you think everybody's looking at it. You walk in the room, and the first thing we all do is judge ourselves and think, this is what it is. I used to be not as outgoing. I didn't used to like to get in front of big crowds talking and like to be around people because that, to me, made it comfortable, right? So then I wasn't out. Now I prefer to walk in a room. I like my loud outfits, my jackets with my stuff in them, my things, and I want to be noticed when I walk in a room because I want to make an impact. And I want people to know that I'm here and I'm different and I embrace that and I love it. Before I wouldn't. So for somebody that is feeling different or thinks they're different, I think my advice to them, a parent, a kid, something would be take what you're upset about or what you're stressed about or what you think is different and use that in a positive mindset to get you set up to know when you go in that you have that superpower, that when you get there, you do have a crooked finger, but you're going to use that to get your mind in a place where you're going to impact the world and make a difference on that tiny little thing. But it's all about using that to get your mind in the right place to say, now when I walk in a room, do I still have a lot of insecurities? Of course I do. Before I came in here to you, absolutely. But I came in with a mindset of, this is going to be great. It's going to be amazing. People are going to be inspired by it. Things are going to happen. You and I are going to connect. There's going to be a relationship here. We're going to do great things in the community. And that's what's kept me going and positive. And I didn't dwell on all the other stuff, but that's getting my mind in the right place before we started.
I love it. You are truly an inspiration, Eric. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Making Maverick Moves with Gina L. Osborne is produced and edited by Zill Media. Connect with us on social media at ginalosborne.com/makingmaverickmoves. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Making Maverick Moves wherever you get your podcasts.